In the midst of a media circus that's turned Shedeur Sanders into a constant headline, Bruce Arians stepped up to call out what many in the old guard have been whispering for years. Football, he argues, is no longer about grit or development, it's a production. Arians' blunt assessment isn't just about Sanders. It's about an entire system that now demands young athletes be viral sensations before they're reliable starters. Sanders, with his swagger, lineage, and magnetism, has become a convenient symbol of this change, an avatar for both the sport's digital evolution and its cultural growing pains.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
What's playing out around Shedeur Sanders isn't just media hype, it's a seismic shift in football's identity. Arians' defense isn't a personal endorsement so much as a red flag against a machine that exploits personality over performance. Sanders' fame isn't the problem, it's the byproduct of a system that now values clicks more than completions. And until the sport recalibrates, players like Sanders will continue to walk a tightrope between potential and distraction, with coaches like Arians left trying to hold the line. In the middle of a growing frenzy surrounding young quarterback Shedeur Sanders, the former NFL coach did what few in the industry have the guts to do anymore. He called out the entire machine. Not just the kid. Not just the coverage. The system itself. The one that turns teenage athletes into trending topics, edits sideline smirks into meme montages, and trades actual performance for viral engagement like it's fantasy football for influencers. And just like that, Arians became a headline himself. The irony? In trying to slow down the noise, he amplified it. Welcome to the age of football as entertainment, where nothing goes quietly, and no good deed survives the comment section. Shedeur Sanders, the son of NFL legend Deion Sanders, hasn't just entered the spotlight, he's been launched into it. His rise through the college ranks and into the national conversation isn't just about talent. It's about timing, media appeal, and the gravitational pull of a famous last name. Shedeur isn't just playing football. He's starring in a live-streamed, algorithm-fed drama that rewrites itself every weekend. And he knows it. The calm confidence he carries into interviews? That's not just poise, it's survival. He's not just a quarterback anymore. He's content. And the content is working. Every clip, every glance, every perfectly timed response gets fed into the machine. And the machine is hungry. Sports media isn't what it used to be. Game analysis has taken a backseat to engagement metrics. A quarterback's stats might tell one story, but his TikTok highlights tell another. And right now, Shedeur Sanders is trending. That's where Bruce Arians stepped in. Not with a personal attack. Not with a hot take about Shedeur's mechanics. But with something that feels almost radical in today's football ecosystem. Concern. Arians' criticism wasn't aimed at Sanders the person, or even Sanders the player. It was aimed at the circus surrounding him. At the endless loop of hype and reaction, post and repost, clip and controversy. Arians wasn't slamming a young athlete. He was pleading with the industry to give these players room to develop, not just perform. But of course that nuance got buried under headlines. Bruce Arians blasts Sanders' hype is a lot catchier than veteran coach raises concerns about media landscape. And in the digital age, subtlety is bad for business. The media frenzy is nothing new. But it's evolved. Faster. Louder. Less about substance, more about spectacle. Now, it's not just about winning games, it's about winning narratives. That's the game Shedeur Sanders was born into. Literally. When your dad is Deion Primetime Sanders, the spotlight isn't optional. It's inherited. And Shedeur? He's playing it like a pro. Cool under pressure, sharp with the mic, and unbothered by the chaos swirling around him. He's everything modern sports media loves. Charismatic. Photogenic. Sharp-witted. But behind all that polish is a 21-year-old athlete trying to build a career while the internet debates his every move. And that's the tension Bruce Arians tried to spotlight. Not the player, but the climate that turns every young star into a symbol. The real story here isn't just about Shedeur. It's about what the NFL and sports culture at large has become. The old-school model of put your head down and work hard is clashing with a new world of branding, storytelling, and constant engagement. Coaches used to talk about locker room presence. Now they talk about Instagram followers. And whether they like it or not, players have to be both athlete and influencer. Shedeur's rise is textbook modern fame. He's got the talent, sure, but he's also got the package. A high-profile college career. A viral personality. A legendary dad who knows exactly how to keep cameras rolling. He walks into a room and the algorithm takes notes. And that's not a knock, it's just the reality. In today's sports world, it's not enough to play well. You have to play loudly. And that's what Bruce Arians was really warning about. Because when media value overtakes actual football performance, the consequences aren't just aesthetic, they're strategic. Teams start playing into the hype. Coaches make decisions based on headlines, not locker room dynamics. Players get elevated before they're ready, thrown into the deep end of a narrative they can't control. And the most twisted part? The machine rewards it. A viral quarterback brings in clicks. Clicks bring in sponsors. Sponsors bring in money. Suddenly it's not about the playbook. It's about the play count on YouTube. The ecosystem has shifted. And it's not necessarily better. When social media engagement becomes more important than completion percentages, the entire foundation of the sport starts to crack. That's what Arians was trying to say. But in today's media, there's no room for that kind of nuance. You're either defending the player or dragging him. And Bruce? He got framed as a hater. But the truth is, his frustration wasn't just about Shedeur Sanders. It was about all of it. The media overexposure. The industry's obsession with personality over performance. The way young athletes are expected to carry not just a team but a brand, before they've even finished learning the league. The problem isn't that Shedeur is confident. It's that the system would rather amplify that confidence into clickbait than let him grow. And every time someone tries to quiet the hype, it only gets louder. Arians' comments were meant to cool things off, but they went viral instead, proving his point in real time. He tried to protect the player, and the reaction turned him into a storyline. That's the paradox. The system feeds on critique. There's no such thing as a private opinion anymore. Say something measured and it'll be boiled down into a tweet. Say something controversial and it'll be plastered across thumbnails. Either way, you've just added fuel to the fire you were trying to put out. And Shedeur? He just keeps walking through it. Because like it or not, this is the job now. Quarterback. Spokesperson. Meme subject. Culture war symbol. Athletes today have to be fluent in all of it. And for someone like Shedeur, the challenge isn't just winning games, it's surviving the spotlight. Turning chaos into opportunity without losing control of the narrative. And so far he's doing exactly that. But the question still stands, at what cost? The system doesn't pause. It doesn't care if a player needs time to learn or space to grow. It cares about attention. And once you have it, it doesn't let go. That's what Bruce Arians was trying to warn about. That the game underneath the game, the media game, is rigged. That it's becoming harder and harder to separate skill from spectacle. That athletes are being measured not just by what they do on the field, but by how well they perform off it. And what does that mean for the sport itself? It means the future of football might not be shaped by strategy or discipline or grit, but by engagement. And while that might be great for advertisers, it's a dangerous game for the players living inside the narrative. Because eventually the spotlight burns. And while Shedeur Sanders seems ready for it now, no one stays immune forever. Not when every pass, every quote, every emoji becomes fuel for the machine. The balance between football and fame is getting harder to maintain. And the people sounding the alarm, like Bruce Arians, are often the first to be drowned out by the noise. So the next time you see a viral clip or a trending take about a young star quarterback, ask yourself, are we celebrating talent or feeding the cycle? Is this support or spectacle? Because one thing's clear, the NFL isn't just a league anymore. It's a stage. And right now, Shedeur Sanders is front and center. Whether he asked for it or not. If you're watching this, drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the hype helps or hurts young players? And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next big meltdown. Because in the world of modern sports media, the drama is just getting started. The moment Arians spoke out, just one coach, one man with decades of hard-earned credibility, he instantly became part of the very problem he was calling out. His comments were clipped, remixed, and turned into reaction bait. YouTubers debated his tone. Sports talk panels dissected his phrasing. TikToks used dramatic music over his quotes like it was the climax of a Marvel movie. No context. No balance. Just contempt. It's almost poetic. Arians wasn't throwing shade, he was waving a caution flag. But in today's digital arena, everything gets flattened into a hot take. You're either team hype or team hater. No middle ground. The algorithm doesn't do nuance. It does noise. And the louder, the better. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders just keeps showing up. Come, boys. Locked in. You'd never guess that behind every press conference and post-game interview, there's a swarm of media narratives ready to pounce. The kid doesn't flinch. He's been trained for this, maybe not in the traditional football sense but in the modern sense. In the Deion Sanders school of primetime media handling. That's what separates Shedeur from so many others. He's not just a quarterback. He's the prototype for what a new generation of athletes looks like. He's savvy. He knows the camera's always rolling. He knows one offhand comment can turn into a week's worth of headlines. And still he plays it cool. That's not just charisma, it's survival strategy. Because here's the truth. In 2025, athletic ability doesn't exist in a vacuum. You could be the most technically gifted player in the league, but if you can't navigate the media maze, you're toast. And Shedeur? He's doing laps around that maze while the rest of us are still figuring out where the entrance is. But just because he's handling it well doesn't mean it's right. And that's what Bruce Arians was trying to shine a light on. The fact that we've created a system where handling PR pressure is as important as executing a 2-minute drill. Where players have to train for their image as much as they train for their sport. That's a massive shift. A cultural one. And it's not limited to Shedeur Sanders. Look around the league. The next generation of players are media literate, camera aware, and branding obsessed. It's not about legacy anymore, it's about marketability. And honestly, who can blame them? The incentives are everywhere. Sponsors don't care about a win-loss record as much as they care about engagement. Endorsements are less about trophies and more about reach. In this climate, silence doesn't protect you. It erases you. And while that works great for some, it leaves others behind. Because not every young player is built to be a media star. Not every 20-year-old wants to be a spokesperson. But in today's NFL, you don't get to choose. If you want to succeed, if you want to be seen, you have to perform off the field as much as you do on it. So when someone like Bruce Arians comes along and says, hey, maybe we should slow down, maybe we should listen. Because there's a cost to this kind of overexposure. And it doesn't always show up right away. It starts with pressure. With young athletes feeling like they can't just play the game, they have to live up to the narrative. They have to be the guy people expect to see online, not just the one they are in the locker room. Then comes the backlash. Because fame is a fickle beast. The same media cycle that builds you up can, and will, tear you down. One bad game? Suddenly you're overrated. One misstep in an interview? Now you're arrogant. One lost playoff appearance? Now you were never that good to begin with. The same people begging for your sound bites are the first to call you cocky when things go south. And that's the danger Arians sees. He's watched careers rise and fall. He's seen what happens when young players get consumed by hype before they've had time to really develop. His message wasn't anti-Shedeur. It was pro-sustainability. But the media didn't care. Because nuance doesn't go viral. Conflict does. So while Arians got labeled as out of touch, Shedeur got framed as the face of modern football chaos. Even though neither of them asked for this clash. One is trying to protect the game he's dedicated his life to. The other is just trying to navigate the game as it exists now. And here's where it gets really messy. The system needs both of them. It needs the old guard to lend legitimacy and tradition. To remind everyone of what sports used to stand for. Grit. Discipline. Focus. And it needs the new wave to bring in audiences, boost ratings, sell jerseys, and keep the league relevant in an era where everything competes for attention. It's a balancing act. And right now that balance is off. When every sideline moment becomes a meme. When every player's name is a trending hashtag before they've even played a full season. When sports journalism turns into influencer commentary, you start to lose the sport in all the noise. And don't get it twisted. This isn't about being anti-technology or anti-fun. It's not about telling players to stay silent or avoid building their brands. It's about protecting them from the burnout, the backlash, and the burden that comes with being more product than person. Because once you're inside the content machine, it doesn't stop for bad days. It doesn't pause for mental health. It doesn't care about context. All it wants is the next clip, the next headline, the next take. And if you've been paying attention, you can already see it happening. Every time Shedeur jokes in a press conference, it's dissected like Shakespeare. Every game he plays is framed as a referendum on everything, from his dad's legacy to Gen Z's work ethic to the future of the NFL. He's not allowed to just be a young player figuring things out. He's a symbol, a test case, a walking take. And yeah, he handles it like a pro. But should he have to? Bruce Arians didn't think so. And deep down, neither do a lot of fans, coaches, and players watching this unfold. There's a growing unease that we're pushing these kids too hard, too fast. That we're treating their development like a content calendar instead of a process. Because once the camera's on, it never really turns off. And that leaves us with a choice. We can keep feeding the beast. Keep treating athletes like characters in a never-ending drama series, where wins and losses are just subplots and the real content is the chaos in between. Or we can take a beat. We can acknowledge the culture shift without losing the core of what makes sports matter. Competition. Growth. Humanity. Not just the spectacle but the substance underneath it. Because at the end of the day, Shedeur Sanders is a talented young quarterback with sky-high potential. But he's also a 21-year-old kid, learning how to lead, handle pressure, and build a career while millions of people watch and judge every move he makes. And Bruce Arians? He might be old school. But sometimes the old school wisdom hits harder than all the highlight reels combined. So here's the question, are we watching Shedeur Sanders because he's that good, or because we've turned him into a character in our favorite soap opera? And if it's the second one, what happens when the script changes? This is not a one-off media moment. It's not just a spicy take from a veteran coach or a couple of viral clips from a young quarterback. This is the new template. A full-on playbook where sports coverage is less about what happens during the game and more about what happens around it. Let's be real, Shedeur Sanders is a talented, composed, and uniquely marketable athlete. But the way the system has elevated him? That's about more than football. That's about the machine finding its next content king. And Shedeur, willingly or not, has been drafted into something bigger than the game. The hype isn't just coming from fans. It's coming from media corporations, broadcast partners, team PR departments, and yes, social media algorithms, all working together to manufacture narratives that drive numbers. When Shedeur walks off the field, he doesn't go back to anonymity. He steps into the second arena, the 24/7 public conversation, where perception can outweigh performance in a heartbeat. That's what Bruce Arians was pointing to. This isn't about one player getting too much attention. It's about a sport losing its center. About priorities shifting so far toward virality that fundamentals are being left in the dust. And yet, when Arians raised that flag, the reaction wasn't reflection, it was deflection. He's just out of touch, they said. Let the kids have fun. But nobody's saying Shedeur shouldn't be confident. Nobody's denying his charisma or ability to handle the spotlight. What Arians said, plainly and without personal malice, is that we're asking too much of young athletes too soon for the wrong reasons. And that truth hit a nerve. Because if there's one thing the modern NFL and its media offshoots don't want to admit, it's that the spotlight is a double-edged sword. It can launch careers. It can also ruin them. Just look at the track record. We've seen it before. Promising young stars become overnight sensations, only to be burned out by the pressure to be more than athletes. They're expected to be personalities, leaders, role models, social commentators, and entertainers, all before they've mastered their playbook. It's like giving someone the keys to a Ferrari when they're still learning to drive. Sure, it looks cool, for a while. But what happens when it spins out? And you know what's even more dangerous than the hype? The silence that follows when the hype moves on. Because the media spotlight isn't loyal. It doesn't stick around when things get quiet or messy. It moves fast and it moves on. So when the game isn't going perfectly, or the next viral quote doesn't land, or the next season doesn't live up to the last, it leaves players hanging in a vacuum of unmet expectations and public scrutiny. That's the part no one's talking about. Not the glory of the rise but the fallout of the fall. And it's not just Shedeur Sanders in the crosshairs. He's the example, but he's not the only one. There's a whole generation of players coming up in this new media-saturated environment, where every move is content and every statement is a headline. They're being shaped, not just as athletes but as characters. Branded, packaged, and sold before they even hit their prime. That's the structural issue Arians was calling out. But it got lost in translation because it's easier to create sides than to have a real conversation. Easier to say he's anti-youth, or outdated, than to admit he might be right. And while all this unfolds, Shedeur keeps his head down and keeps playing. It's impressive. Honestly, it's remarkable. The level of self-control and media poise he's shown would be difficult for a 30-year-old pro, let alone someone just starting out. He's been thrown into the deep end of celebrity culture, and he's swimming with composure. But here's the twist, he shouldn't have to. The fact that he's handling it well doesn't mean the pressure is justified. It just means he's surviving it better than most. We've moved so far into this era of performance for the camera that we barely notice how unnatural it's become. It's not weird anymore for sideline conversations to be dissected like courtroom testimony. It's not surprising when post-game interviews spark more headlines than the actual gameplay. It's not strange that players are judged on how entertaining they are in press conferences instead of how well they read a defense. And again, this isn't about resisting change. Sports evolve. Culture evolves. Social media is part of the game now, and players using it to build their brands is totally valid. But there's a difference between an athlete using the platform on their terms and a system that demands constant output to stay relevant. That's the shift we're watching in real time. The performance doesn't end at the final whistle. It extends into the locker room, the interview chair, the Instagram story, and the live stream. It never stops. And if you're not careful, you get buried by it. So while Bruce Arians' comments were labeled controversial, they weren't bitter. They were protective. He wasn't trying to dim Shedeur's light. He was trying to shield it from burning too bright, too fast. Because he's seen how this goes. He's seen promising careers get derailed by hype and pressure. He's seen athletes praised to the skies one day and vilified the next. And he knows that no matter how talented someone is, no one's immune to burnout. But nuance doesn't trend. And that's why we're here. In this cycle. Watching another young star get turned into a narrative, a headline, a conversation topic, when all he really wants to do is play football. The saddest part? Even this conversation, this debate over whether Shedeur is overhyped or unfairly targeted, it still contributes to the machine. Because now that's the content. Not the game. Not the tape. Not the development of a young quarterback. But the drama around how he's being perceived. It's a hall of mirrors. Every reflection is louder than the last, and it's getting harder and harder to see what's real underneath it all. And the truth is, Shedeur Sanders might not be the next NFL legend. Or maybe he is. But we won't know for years. Because development takes time. Skill takes time. Growth takes patience. And right now, the media world doesn't run on patience. It runs on urgency. On speed. On instant narratives. That's the danger Bruce Arians was pointing to. That in the rush to anoint stars, we skip the actual journey. We focus on who's next instead of letting them become something real. We make judgments on week one like they're gospel, and treat confidence like controversy. So where does that leave us? We've got a sport that's evolving into spectacle. A generation of players navigating fame before they've built their resumes. A media landscape obsessed with engagement over insight. And a veteran coach being criticized for daring to ask, "Can we take a breath?" Maybe it's time we listen. Not just to Arians but to the signs all around us. The pressure. The chaos. The way we chew up narratives and move on to the next without thinking about the people at the center of them. Because Shedeur Sanders isn't just a headline. He's a young man navigating one of the most complex, high-stakes jobs in sports and public life. And while he's handling it with remarkable grace, the question we should all be asking is, why do we expect him to handle it at all? What happens when the next Shedeur comes along, and they're not as media savvy? Not as calm? Not as composed? Do we support them the same way, or do we tear them down when they don't live up to the story we've written in our heads? This isn't just about one player or one coach. This is about how we consume sports, how we treat athletes, how we define success, and whether we're willing to rethink a system that rewards noise more than nuance. So if you're still here, still thinking, still listening, drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think this media-driven model is sustainable? Is the NFL becoming more about branding than ball? And if you haven't already, subscribe. Because the story doesn't end here. It never does. Not in this media landscape. Not in this game. The spotlight isn't going anywhere. But maybe, just maybe, we can learn how to use it better. Before it burns someone out for good.